Good afternoon, everyone. Should we try it again? Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. So much better. Thank you for being here. This is the first time we've had a chamber meeting here at St. Eames Church. So thanks to them for letting us use this great space. It's pretty cool, like in between location, right? Almost Stanwood, but so we have two speakers today. First, I would like to introduce Kathryn Wells, who is the Community Outreach Specialist for Snohomish Conservation District. Kathryn provides special support to Camano Island residents in her role as at the district. She holds a BS in Natural Resources from Cornell University, is a National Wildlife Federation Habitat Steward, and has transformed much of her Camano Island home into a low water use pollinator, bird, and amphibian habitat. Fascinating. So Kathryn's going to talk, and then we're going to invite Shawn Smith from the city up to talk about the Dike project. And if you have any announcements, we most likely will have time for that afterwards. So thank you. Thank you, Kathryn.
Thank you very much, Jessica. So great to see you all. I'm really happy to be here, and thank you very much for having me. I also live on Camano Island, so I have a special connection to the work that I do and the work that impacts and positively impacts our lives here on Camano Island. So today we're going to talk a little bit about what Snohomish Conservation District is, along with what conservation districts in general are, Camano Island's water, and where to find information about water resources. Jessica originally contacted me saying that you all wanted information about our groundwater and, you know, how much water do we have available to us. I can't, there's a lot of information I cannot give to you, but I'll share what I can. Some of the water-wise practices, ways to think about using the water on Camano to make what we do receive last as long as we can and be sustainable to all of us. And then how Snohomish Conservation District can help businesses, neighborhoods, and individuals. So first of all, who is familiar with conservation districts or Snohomish Conservation District? You just raise hands, yeah. Okay. All right, so conservation districts are a non-regulatory entity. They came out of the Soil Conservation Service, which was born from the Dust Bowl era, as the topsoil was being blown away from the Midwest and the Great Plains, even out as far as Washington, D.C., where Congress people were like, wow, this is really a problem. It was because of extreme drought, but also because of some of the farming practices of that day. And so what, I'm forgetting his full name, but the Soil Conservation Service was born out of this idea that there are different ways to treat the soil, to keep the soil intact, healthy, so it can continue to grow food for all of us. And the non-regulatory idea of this is what was the key thing, is that people learn best when they can learn from their peers and when it's non-confrontational in a non-regulatory way. So that's what conservation districts are. We work locally, we're non-regulatory, but we serve the needs of local people, local properties, and natural resources. And we're governed by a group of local people, locally elected and appointed. So Snohomish Conservation District is one of those conservation districts, and we serve both Snohomish County and Camano Island. We've been serving Camano Island since 1961. We provide free technical assistance and financial assistance to land managers, so people who own property or who manage property in Snohomish County and Camano Island. Part of how we're able to do that is through a small rate on your property taxes, but we also get ton of grants, lots and lots of grants. So we're able to help people that way too. We work with both rural and urban residents on a variety of different things, from farm planning to youth and adult education, agriculture resilience, lawns to lettuce, so urban agriculture, or like home gardening type agriculture, forestry planning, which is huge here on Queen, obviously. So today we're speaking about water. Camano, one of our defining features is that we have the rain that falls mostly in the winter, and we have a very distinct summer dry period. And that seems to be getting longer. We don't know what the patterns are showing, but the climate predictions are showing that in likelihood we may get more rain, but it's going to be in the winter, and we're going to have longer drier periods in the summer. So we have this winter abundance and summer dearth of water. The rain amount of precipitation we get varies from the north to the south end, but you know it's less than what we get on the mainland. Plus, because of our soils, we don't have. A lot of our soils are not able to hold the water, except in like little areas where there's a clay layer, for example, our Parthenia. Additional challenges that we face, that all our drinking water comes from our aquifers, our groundwater. There are no streams, there's no snow. We don't get anything from the mainland, from rivers, from reservoirs, that kind of thing. Increased development and loss of our native plant ecosystems tend to reduce the amount of water that makes it back down into our aquifers. So that is another challenge. And then with less water making it down into our aquifers and a periodic heavy draws on our aquifers in the summertime can increase the risk of saltwater intrusion, particularly in the south end. These maps here, a map like this and various others are found on the Island County website. And where you see high susceptibility, that means that it's a critical area of groundwater recharge. The soils are such that water can make it down into the aquifer and recharge it, but it also means that it's so good pollutants. So it's a little bit of both. So what I'd like to focus on today is how can we think about using our water in a different way? How can we make use of the abundance of the water that we receive in the wintertime to reduce our reliance on groundwater in the summer, to make sure that everyone can have drinking water here into the future, that we're not draining our aquifers dry. First of all, to learn more about our water resources, there is information on the Island County website. Island County did have a hydrogeologist by the name of Doug Kelly. He retired either right before or during the pandemic, and they have not replaced him yet. So he's the person that, you know, you really want to ask about those things, but we don't have him available. However, all of his research, as much of his brain could leave with us, he did on the Island County website, which is nice. Yeah, so you can find this if you just search for Island County hydrogeology, Island County drinking water. You can find this information, including this water resources management plan, which was developed in 2005 by a large group of people. It concludes these are all links, by the way, live links. So you can get to these different topic papers and parts of the management plan, including maps like that. What is it? The combined CARA scoring map. Really great information if you want to know more about our aquifers and our groundwater. Then there's also 2 interactive maps, or one maybe interactive, maybe not, on hydrogeology. So our well viewer, I don't know very much about this. I haven't worked with this. You can get information about the wells on our island through this place. And then there's another application that's not available until the new hydrogeologist is hired. Again, I don't know very much about this, but I wanted to point it out to you that it's available. And yes.
What website is it?
Island County's website. Yeah, Island County Public Health is where the drinking water, hydrogeology, all that falls under public health. So that's information about our groundwater. Now, how can we protect our groundwater? Well, there are several options to help conserve and protect our groundwater. Today, I'm going to focus on rainwater catchment, water-wise landscaping, including protecting our healthy forests and restoring the health of some of our forests. Green stormwater infrastructure, which is also known as low impact development. The two they're slightly different terms and they encompass different things, but I tend to use them interchangeably, which is not super correct. It's not very precise. And then protecting wetlands and, believe it or not, beavers. So we'll start with rainwater catchment. It works really, really well in an area where you can have a couple of barrels to use to water your garden if you live in an area that gets rain year round. We don't. So what is the next best option? It is either multiple barrels or what I show here. We've got totes and cisterns. These are oftentimes recycled totes. They're called IBC totes. They are cube shaped. And they hold 275 gallons. So this is a person here on Camano Island who is using that for her garden and to help water her livestock in case of emergencies. This comes from her roof runoff. I think this is on her barn. And that's 3 275 gallon totes. That's a lot of water. She actually found that that was not quite enough. So she's gonna try to get some more. But that's a really great option. There are other options that are, you know, you can get some in different shapes and you can paint them different colors. This is a 4,000 gallon cistern on the south end of Camano Island. This is also this kind of central south. These are all on Camano Island. Lots of different options for cisterns and rainwater catchment. You can use them for watering your gardens. It is safe to use on an edible garden, provided you have the right roofing material. There are certain types of roofing material, and then if you put a lot of products to prevent moss on your roof, you need to be aware of that too. So be aware of what you're putting into your downspouts. Snohomish Conservation District can help you come up with those calculations, figure out what would be safe for you to use. You want to use a drip irrigation system from your cistern, you need a filter to keep sediment out so it doesn't plug up little drip emitters and things like that. But that's an excellent option. This will get you through at least part of the summer, if not the entire summer. This 4,000 gallon cistern, they were using that to water their orchard. The other option, smaller scale, is to string up a number of small rain barrels. The rain barrels hold 55 gallons each. And you can paint them and decorate them. So these were designed by late artist Bev Paulson, if any of you know her, and painted and actually done. The work was actually done by Roxy Roche, who was another Camano Island. I thought those were particularly beautiful. They are going to be living at the WSU Discovery Garden up in Mount Vernon very soon. Yeah. Any questions so far? Moving on, forestry. So this island was completely forested once upon a time. Maybe there were a couple of pockets of meadows, but most of it was forest. And that really, what the forest does is that it slows down the water. As the water falls from the sky, it hits the trees, it hits the leaves, and it's slowed down as it makes its way. And so when you have a big deluge, it tends to run. With this dripping that happens, the trees catch a lot of it, and then it drips slowly to the forest floor. It has more of a chance to reach the soil, get into the soil, and infiltrate, and then eventually make it down into our groundwater. In addition, when a tree falls over, you know, when it just, and you have the root wad sticking up, and you've got a big hole, a pothole right behind it. Those holes, those divots that a natural forest has, also create a cooling area where water can gather and then slowly infiltrate over time. When we develop a place, a property, we grade the landscape, right? We make it all very flat, and then we chunk the water off to keep it away from the structure. We're preventing that water from getting into the ground and into our groundwater. So think like a forest. One, we want to have healthy forests, and we want to keep the forests that we have, make sure that they're functioning properly and that they're doing what they've done here for years, which was help protect and filter our water. We have assistance through Snohomish Conservation District. We have a forester. We also have partners in WSU Extension Forestry, which has a coached forest, small forest landowner class that people can go through. And the Washington Department of Natural Resources, which has lots of resources and ever increasing resources available for small forest landowners. So it isn't just somebody who has 100 acres, 1,000 acres of woods and they're doing timber management. We can provide assistance for forests that are 2 acres, 5 acres, 10 acres, 40 acres. Just keep us in mind when you have that problem. So in thinking about sustainable landscaping on a smaller scale, when you develop a property, you know, you've removed a lot of the diversity of the landscape that helped filter and infiltrate the water that falls from the sky. You can create a miniature version of that forest on a small property. in a small way. Think of the way, the shape of the forest. You have the Douglas firs and the western red cedars at the top. Underneath, you've got ocean spray, you've got salmonberry, you've got snowberry, you've got all of this wonderful shrub layer. And then at the base, you've got your ferns, you've got other ground covers like low Oregon grape, perhaps some vines like the trailing blackberry. You've got lots of layers. Think of that when you're doing your own garden, and you'll kind of recreate some of those conditions that help nourish the soil and then open it up, because plant roots create channels in the soil, and that allows water to get in, and then it can be filtered by the soil and by the plant roots and get down into our aquifer. Mulch is another thing, like the leaf litter that you find on the forest floor. That's really important to have here too. You know, bare ground is okay in some areas, but in other areas you're going to get a lot of erosion. So it's good to have mulch. And then start growing your own food in your garden. You can do that. So part of a sustainable garden is native plants. Not necessarily exclusively native plants, but native plants are adapted to our climate and soils. They have an ability to resist our native pests and diseases within limits, of course, because there are diseases and pests that come in from other areas, which like emerald ash borer, which is starting to get a foothold here. But most important, they require less water once they're established. They're not like immediate, you know, put them in the ground and they're good to go. But over time, give them 2 or 3 summers and they're good. And then they'll provide year-round habitat and resources for local wildlife, because our local wildlife, our insects, our birds, our amphibians, all those animals grew up with these plants, and they are used to, think about butterflies, they need host plants. When all of our native butterflies, if they don't have the host plants, the native host plants on which their caterpillars can feed, then we don't have an adult generation of those butterflies. This is vine maple. Vine maple is one of our beautiful, beautiful smaller trees. In the fall, it is gorgeous. I'm just going to share there. I could do a whole program on native plants. I'm not going to, but I wanted to highlight a few just to get your ideas going. For sun and moist to dry soil, some neat examples for areas, open areas, would be Canada goldenrod here. This one grows very tall, but there are other goldenrods that are shorter. So this is 4 or 5 feet tall, and then Fermi everlasting. Both of these are very hardy once they're established. And then evergreen huckleberry, which is great in sun or shade. But in the sun, you'll get all those wonderful little huckleberries. And you know what? I've noticed in our own garden that even though our blueberries get stripped by birds, the huckleberries are left alone. So I actually get to harvest something. It's quite annoyable. For shade and dry soils, that can be a harder area. So like underneath Douglas firs, or if you have a forested area. Vine maple, again, it can tolerate dry soils. It can also tolerate shade. It'll grow up a little bit more sinuously. It may not have the same color, but it is extremely adaptable. And then I mentioned earlier, low Oregon grape. This is one of the great plants for bees, because it is one of the first plants to bloom in the spring. And when the queen bumblebees start coming out of the ground right around now, they need something to feed on right away. Red flowering fern, the low Oregon grape, along with gooseberry, also known as Indian plum, are all great options for that. And I can provide you with resources on these things later. These are just 2 of my favorites that I wanted to highlight. Cascara is a tree that was almost eliminated from the landscape because its bark has Cascara sagrada, the laxative. So when they discovered that this was a fantastic little product and could be sold, people harvested Cascara from across the landscape. And we don't have very many Cascara trees left anymore. But they're a smaller tree, but they have berries that are great for birds, tiny little flowers that the bees still find and love. And it's small enough for a small property. So not everybody has room for a Douglas fir in their yard, but they do have room for a Cascara. And then one of my favorites also is camas, and there are many different species of camas. Needs wet in the winter and dry in the summer. Blooms in April, May, depending on how the spring goes. She's gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous. Again, you don't have to do all native plants to create this landscape that provides infiltration of water and filtration of water. You can mix native and exotic plants, provided that those exotic plants are not invasive. So this is an example of a smaller goldenrod, Mount Albert goldenrod with catnip. And you can tell that I like the orange and yellow and purple. Lavender with, this is an annual, a native annual called large flowered Colombia. So there's a lot of really neat things that you can do with a garden like this, which provides you with that mimicked healthy forest ecosystem idea, with the function that we're looking for. And then all that together creates a sustainable and low water garden. Pardon me. When you have an abundance of plants and you've got a variety of plants, you have most likely, if you're not using pesticides and herbicides, which with something like this you don't need to, you have healthier soil. Healthy soil has tons of little microbes in it. It has worms, it's got all kinds of good life. It's living soil and it's good for growing food in. And it provides the ability, healthy soil helps filter water. So if you've got runoff from your driveway into a garden like this, it's going to filter any pollutants from your car, for example, through that, in that soil. And then when it gets down to our groundwater after a number of years, it should be clean. Another way to filter pollutants from stormwater is green stormwater infrastructure or low impact development. Rain gardens like this one here, they use a special soil. They take water that is going where maybe there's excess water. In North Everett, for example, where they have a combined sewer and stormwater system. So all the stormwater goes into the sewer system, which that can overwhelm the wastewater treatment plant. They've been trying to separate those. So they need to take they're trying to reduce the amount of water going into stormwater, which is also going into their wastewater treatment plant. They do that by disconnecting downspouts from the stormwater system and putting that water from the roof or a driveway into a rain garden. The rain garden has special soil in it, which when the water percolates through, infiltrates through that soil, the pollutants are picked up by that soil mix and filtered out so that when it gets down into the native soil, it's cleaner. Then you plant it. You don't, I've been told that you don't actually need plants, but it helps. It's prettier than a bowl of dirt, dirt and mulch. It also reduces flooding. So you can use rain gardens and this type of work to reduce flooding. So this person here on the left, this is one of our crew members, but the person who lives in this house, this is the base of a slope that was cleared for development. They ended up with a ton of water coming off. And that is a common complaint that we hear, is that somebody cleared their property. Now I have all this water running into my garage. It's getting into my crawl space. It's causing problems. So we can provide assistance there. We put in a trench drain or a French drain here to take the water flowing off of that slope and directing it back toward this rain garden, so that they don't have a flooded garage and crawl space in the water. Again, the healthy forest helps prevent some of that. A sustainable, like a diverse mix of plants helps prevent some of that runoff. These are two other examples of rain gardens. This one here is at the dental office, the Camano Island Dental, just up back that way. And this is taking runoff from their driveway and putting it into this beautiful large rain garden. Any questions so far? All right. Yes.
Are there required development standards in many counties so that new commercial construction has to build retention basins or water runoff and pre-percolation?
I know there are in the cities. I'm not very familiar with all the codes. I'm trying to think about what it is. I know Oak Harbor has regulations. I don't know about the other cities on the here on Camano. There may be, yeah, I think you do have to do detention ponds for that kind of development. Those work similarly and do need maintenance. So a lot of different, we're doing a lot of work right now with municipalities and homeowners associations that have detention ponds where they, especially for homeowners associations, people move in and they're like, what is this thing? I don't know what to do. Who has responsibility for this? I don't know. Yeah, so we're trying to do training to help them understand how to maintain these things so that they continue to filter that water before it makes its way into the waterway. But yeah, you're welcome. I think that would be a great, you can probably find that information. Yeah, so thank you for asking. And if you need more information from me, I can try to find it. Okay. So wetlands and beavers are things that we want to have on the landscape. The historical view of wetlands and beavers is that they were in the way of what we humans wanted to do on the landscape. What we have learned over the years is that they provide really essential functions. Many, in addition to groundwater recharge. So wetlands take this water, they do the same thing that a rain garden does, they filter it when they're functioning properly, when the plants are growing the way that they should, they filter that water. And then when it gets down into the ground over time, it is clean and available for humans to take back out via their water wells. Beavers do the same thing by creating these wetlands. So what we're trying to do now is we've had regulations in place for a long time protecting wetlands because we recognize the function, the essential functions that they play on our landscape. Beavers are challenging. So, but we're trying to bring them back onto the landscape wherever we can. And I'll share a little bit of information about that. So that's, there we go. So beavers create ecosystems. This whole area was created by a beaver, and there's a lot of complexity in here. So it's habitat complexity, but it also stores water, and with the plants and the water in this healthy habitat, you get an opportunity for the rainwater to be cleaned before it ever gets down into the groundwater, in addition to the many other benefits of providing fish habitat, amphibian habitat, bird habitat, mammal habitat, anything that likes water could live there. By creating these dams, they create all this complexity. And yeah, so we call them the ultimate ecosystem engineers, because they not only improve water quantity, but they also improve water quality. They improve habitat, aquatic habitat. They create upland, not upland habitat, but habitat that upland animals can live still. And the key part that I wanted to point out here is that through these beaver ponds and the work that they do, all this water can make it back down into the groundwater. And that groundwater can be go and end up back down into our aquifers to provide water for us later, or they can feed streams. So what we're dealing with mostly on the mainland is that the less groundwater that there is, the more the streams dry up in the summer, and then you have these competing issues with fish needing water and humans needing water, and everybody's fighting over the water. So if we can bring more beavers back onto the landscape, we can maybe help make sure that there is enough for everybody.
So you have a really good, on the site, you have a lot of good information about beavers, because we've had neighbors come to us and say, you've got to get rid of these things, and have to say, no, here's the site.
Yeah, and it is, and there is a comment because they do cause some challenges. There is tree chewing. They will take down some trees. We have a prized Western red cedar, and it's like, they can block culverts. They'll block an entire culvert overnight. They're very efficient at what they do, and then they can create flooding. So when they create their dams and they create their ponds, it can back up into other people's yards. But there are solutions. Yeah. So thank you for bringing that up, and we can help provide those solutions. And this is the woman that we would have you talk to, and she can do a presentation if you're ever interested in having her out. She has a wonderful presentation just about beavers and how amazing they are and what they do, but also how we can live with them. So you can see an example of that right across from Casa is the beaver pond that was created at the south end of the Christopherson family's land. that, you know, Christopherson Creek runs through there. It runs under a culvert under East Camano Drive. And the beavers were flooding out Casa, and you can imagine what a mess that would be. So they put in, I think they put in both a pond leveler and a beaver deceiver to keep the beaver from plugging up the culvert. And yeah, they have great names. And also to then keep the water at a certain level so that it doesn't overtop the road and get into Casa and wash out all their kennels without them wanting. So this is Ariana Winkler, and she's our beaver person. She and her crew install all kinds of pond levelers and beaver deceivers, and she has all kinds of great information. And in some cases, we have funding and maybe able to help with that. So, keeping beavers on this landscape is fantastic. But in addition to Ariana, we have a whole team of people that can provide assistance to anybody who's struggling with, you know, how do I keep my forest healthy? I've seen a lot of trees coming down in the, you know, with the winds that we've had. How do I, you know, what do I do now? Do I clean it all up? Do I leave it down? What do I replace these trees with? And I've got my Western red cedars that are dying. What do I replace them with? Because it's just too dry for Western red cedars in some of our areas right now. We have a whole team of people that can come out for free to you on your property and talk with you on a voluntary basis. This is not regulatory. If you have a business and you have the same questions, just invite us out. We'd be happy to come out and troubleshoot some ways that you can reach your goals in addition to protecting the environment and for the purposes of this topic, our groundwater and our sources of water. We also have free education and resources, both virtual and in person. This Camano Island 101, I think some of you have probably been to, and thank you for doing that, and thank you for participating. We have that every year now. We have a booth there. And then this little picture here, oops, I guess I pointed the right thing, is at Camano Beach State Park. So we now have a conservation station providing education at Camano Beach State Park for anybody who's there. I had a whole bunch more resources here, but that version of the presentation didn't sync up. So I will add more before I send out a PDF. I want to mention that it is National Groundwater Awareness Week. Who knew? So this link, the 10 ways to protect and conserve groundwater, includes the 4 things that I talked about today, but also numerous other ways that we can protect our groundwater. And then native plants are available not just from us and other conservation districts, but from many different resources, including a number of nurseries that are now sort of selling native plants. There are also native plant nurseries that are wholesale, but they also will sell retail. So there's a place up in Bellingham that has, all they do is native plants. I've gotten a number of things from them, and they do wholesale and retail. And then you can find, what was your name? Sandra. Yeah. Sandra Garson. Sandra, very nice to meet you. Yeah. As she mentioned, there's a lot of information on our website. So I have this, I just wanted to leave this in here for when you get your PDF. It's a planting diagram because the key part of planting native plants is to not assume that they don't need water just because they do for the first 2 or 3 years. And you have to make sure you have them on the right side. But I want to open it up to questions. Yes. So I'm hoping to do a lot of planting. We're not in a teeny yard, but I need to take up a lot of grass to do it. Yeah. I have simple advice on the best way to preserve the soil, because you need to take really good soil with it. It does, yeah. Particularly if you have a small yard, this is a viable option. What I've done in my yard is we've taken out a lot of our lawn by using sheet mulching. And so what that involves is mowing down the grass in the area where you want to plant down to the nubbin, putting cardboard or layers of newspaper over that, wetting it down, then adding like an inch or 2 of compost, and then a nice thick layer, 2 to 4 inches or more wood chip mulch. Wood chip mulch, particularly, you don't want like the beauty bark or the fine bark mulch. You want a good chunky mulch. You can call Puget Sound Tree Care, for example, and say, You can call them, do you still deliver, will you still deliver chippings if you're in the area? You can just drop them off. Will you still drop off wood chips?
Yeah.
Mulch? Okay. All right.
Just falling down.
Okay. Fantastic. Yeah. So that's a great way. Or we've been able to stop by when we see snow funds contractors out on the roads, you know, so that you can pull over safely. Sometime, like we live right up the road, if you need a place to dump your wood chips, and they'll just like, and they'll do it. So you'll get a lot. It'll take up your driveway. You'll get 8 to 10 or sometimes more cubic yards of wood chips, but share it with your neighbors, and it works really well. So then you let that sit. Ideally, you let that sit for a season, because then the cardboard will decompose and everything. And then once you dig in, it's like butter. It's just wonderful. So yeah, if you can't wait that long, you can also use a utility knife to cut a hole in the cardboard and plant it. Yeah. And keep it watered, because that until that cardboard layer decomposes completely, the water may have a little more trouble getting through. So keep your plants watered. You don't have to water the whole thing, just your plants. Yeah. And start small. Yeah. Yes. Other questions?
Maybe out of your wheelhouse, but you have pointed out that groundwater is a plant. But we keep drawing more from the groundwater table. Have there been any discussions, particularly you have discussions, you know, organization, a similar mission with county elected representatives about restricting residential development in order to not get into a situation like my fellows in California have been, which is where I'm from. So
yeah. Yeah.
But you know, as we are likely, we will never have water pipe in the island. So the likelihood that we will, is your climate change run out becomes more and more prevalent each year. And yet, you know, I see permitting all over the island for more construction. And I feel somewhat selfish in that I just bought a house a year ago. You know, I have my piece, not nobody else. I'm curious if those discussions the community I came from, we had restrictions, annual caps on the number of units that was built. We did until San California returned to meet their housing. So I'm just curious. It's something I've been thinking about.
Yeah. I know that those conversations have been going on, and part of the reason that Doug Kelly developed those groundwater maps and the locations of all the wells is to help answer that question. So where that went after his, you know, where that leads us after his retirement, I don't know, because I think that I know our Snohomish Conservation District hasn't had a conversation like that, because that is a little bit about outside of our wheelhouse. More ours is more, how do you make good use of the resources that you do have to make sure that the groundwater gets replenished, for example. But as far as restricting development and limiting the number of new straws that can go into the pond underground, I think it'd be worth having Janet St. Clair, you know, address, you know, what are their thoughts about that? You know, are they having discussions at the planning level about, you know, what did Doug's research show? Do we have, you know, how many more straws can we put in the ground? How much more water can we draw? The Water Resources Advisory Committee is also an option for that too. They do consider groundwater as part of the review, and that's a citizen and staff, Island County staff committee. So that's another option for you. Yeah, I'm sorry, I don't have other answers for you.
Thank you. I just
yeah, I just came back from the trip to Nebraska, and they're facing the same thing. They're looking at a river going dry in the next 30 years.
Well, you consider here we're mixing percolation of septic systems, wastewater, into our groundwater, adding limited groundwater. being depleted by additional construction.
Yeah.
It seems to me it ought to be very important. I can tell you from looking on the county's website, I see no staff on any of this. But I'm just curious when you.
Yeah, it's hard. And one thing is that that's the other, I'm glad you brought up septic, because that's, it's actually really, really good to have a septic system. You're keeping the water right here, provided it works properly. So that's the, that's really important to make sure that our septic systems are all managed. Yeah. And did you have a question?
Septic.
Septic, yeah.
Well, no.
Oh,
they kind of answered it. Septic, there's anything. Actually, I grew up in a lake, and we had a septic system. And at some point, when people get around the lake, you had to put in a sewer because it's trying to put the lake.
Yeah. It's challenging because a lot of the septic systems on this island and many other places in the world were put in before they knew how much, how long they would last and how much they could filter. So now when you buy, if you were to build a house now, the regulations around the type of septic system you have and how it needs to function are very different from when you built a house in the 50s. Plus the soils, that as one of our septic instructors that we work with, she said all the really good percolating soils, they're all used. Everybody has already tested. They've already found the best spots to buy a house and put a septic system. Now we're left with the houses and the plots of land and the soils that are not ideal. So then you have mounds, and then you have these aerated treatment units, aerobic treatment units. And then you have sand filters and this and UV treatment and everything else. And it's hard. So it's hard. It's just hard for us to manage everything as humans, as what the planet needs and what we need. It's hard to make it all work sometimes. I should leave enough time for you.
Any other questions? Well, thank you very much. Learn all the time to do things all the time. We can probably turn that off,
okay.
All right. If you don't mind.
Yep.
So I would like to introduce Shawn, who is going to talk about another different kind of water issue, right? Shawn is the city administrator for the city of Stanwood, has over 20 years of local government experience, currently the city administrator for the city of Stanwood. And prior to becoming city administrator, he serves as the city engineer and capital projects manager for the city. So now you have an even bigger project.
Yes.
That you're dealing with. So we're focusing specifically on the dike, but you're welcome to talk about anything else water related that you wish.
Thank you very much. Yes, Shawn Smith, City of Stanwood. Who doesn't know about the dike project? Okay, good. So then I won't explain too much. Basically, it's been a fundraising campaign. The mayor and I have been meeting with everybody we can. We spent a day in Olympia and met with about 10 different representatives. We've had, Representative Shavers and Senator Muzal out here. We've had Dave Paul out here, Snohomish County Council member Nate Nearing, Rick Larson's been out here. And so searching for money, that's been the big thing. We have a request in, we have a floodplains by design, which is a Department of Ecology grant. There's $1 million for this project on that we were basically told that's going to get funded. So there's $1 million. If you hadn't read in the paper, we just received $1.75 million from Snohomish County, which was wonderful. We went to Olympia asking for 5.4. It's about 7.9 total. The 1.75 knocks it down to 3.4. If we get the floodplains, we're down to 2.4. So we're getting there. We have that request into the state. We put in a request to Patty Murray for her budget and to Rick Larson for his budget. So we're shaking all the trees. Sarah's going to be passing a hat. So let's see what we can do. In the meantime, we have been permitting. The Snohomish Tribe's a big partner of ours. They are running the design and the permitting. The design is close. Permitting takes forever. The Army Corps of Engineers is now they're talking multiple years for every project, but we're fingers crossed next summer construction. So that's going. Do you all know where the Johnson farm is? So it's right over the bridge. We've had environmental group out there doing assessments because they had fuel tanks above ground and below. So we're looking for contamination. They're looking for asbestos and lead paint in the buildings. And we're supposed to get their findings next week. And then we are going to start cleaning up and ripping all those buildings down. We didn't renew our leases. We had 2 of the houses out there rented out. So we have gotten rid of them. We do have, I mean, they left. We do have the high school FFA uses one of our barns to raise pigs. And we've said they can continue through the year. So they'll be done in June. So it'll be after June that we do our major demolition. Let's see.
Is that for Openell too? Or?
No,
Oh,
that's just the Johnson. So the dikes, yeah, it's basically 532 north. Yeah, I don't know. I think that's about it. Any questions?
At this stage of the game, Island County has still not participated financially in assisting with this problem.
That is correct. We have had multiple discussions with Janet St. Clair. She's very supportive, written letters of support for us for other grant activities, but we haven't officially received anything from us.
So she hasn't taken it to the board as a request for funding from the county on behalf of the Camano Island residents.
Not that I know of.
And construction would start?
If everything goes well, it would be summer of 24.
You have to secure all the funds first.
But yes, we have to secure the funds. The permitting is probably going to be the biggest holdup because at this point, I think we have enough money that we would start if we had permits in hand, and we would just start at 532 and work north and get as far as we could with the money we have, while continuing to look for money.
Is there still plan? Wasn't there talk of having walking trails on top of some of those dikes out there?
Yes, that is part of it. Not all of it, because some of the farmers are absolutely no, do they want people walking by seeing what they're doing on their farm, and they have duck hunting shacks out there. And but about a mile is what we've heard we can get permission on. The city's going to own the first, several thousand feet, and then the next farmer's been working really closely with us, and he's supportive of letting it. So about a mile worth of trail.
Are the permits, are those held up on state level or county level, and why? Big question.
Hey, whoa. What I would say, as of now, they're not held up. The problem is when the mayor our new mayor, now he's been there over a year. When he came on board, I had just come on board, and that's when the city really got involved with this project. Prior to that, we heard about it. We, were supportive in a passive way. Now we've gone, we need to help these guys out. Diking District 7 was running it with the help of the Snohomish tribes. And they just don't have any staff. They don't have any technical expertise. And so then we decided, well, we're going to take the Johnson farm property that the city bought, and we're going to make that mitigation area, donate that to the cause. So now we're going to take the dike, from 532, it's going to go, and it's going to loop out to create this additional tidal flat mitigation area. So the permits aren't delayed yet. We just know that,
Well, thank you for stepping in and helping the mayor.
you know, we want to protect downtown Stanwood and the highways. So,
Yeah. We would like to be able to leave the island sometime.
yes.
You'll send us some food over.
And I will say, when we're down in Olympia, we've also met with members of the transportation committee, and we've requested funding to do design of a roundabout on 532 and 64th. If you know where that is, that's a very east end of town. It's the intersection past the high school. So fair turnoff, yes. If you know much about Stanwood, most of our residents live up on the hill over on that in that area, and they can't get on the highway to go to I-5 in the morning there. It's just terribly dangerous because everybody gets that green light at 72nd, hits the gas, and then there's kind of a corner there. So it's, but if we got a roundabout there, so now they all go to 72nd and they make that back up in front of the high school and make the light turn red for everybody going from Camano. So if we can get them away from that and keep that light green in this direction, we believe that's going to be a help for Camano and Stanwood. So this is one of the projects. And just to go off of the last presentation, we actually, one of our council members had asked us to look into a long-term water plan. And so we've talked to the city of Everett. They're the regional water provider. Their water goes to Arlington. So there's talk of Stanwood looking at building a line to connect to Arlington to be able, because we're just wells, Stanwood's all wells. If we were able to do that, who knows, maybe someday we work with Camano and we get a big enough line that you can actually get piped water.
We're still trying to get internet.
Steps first, baby.
Do you have any update on Twin City Foods that just sold that you want to share?
I certainly could. I should probably have Sarah do it though,
Okay.
because
if you want to do that as part of your announcements.
Yeah, so I'm sure people have seen things on social media and the paper. Twin City Foods closed in February, I believe for 19.4 million, so almost 20 million. And the organization that bought the building is No Meat Factory. They create soy-based meat alternative products. So anything for vegetarians or vegans. They are based currently in Canada and British Columbia, and they are expanding from a 30,000 square foot facility to now Twin City Foods, which is almost 200,000 square feet. So they have this in their growth plan to move to a bigger facility. I believe they started their operations just right before COVID in 2019. So they had plans to expand in 2020 and 2021, which is obviously delayed. But we've been meeting with them, with city staff, elected officials, and with Economic Alliance of Snohomish County as a partner to get them to come to Washington, to Stanwood specifically. So we'll be working with them over the next couple of months as they get all of their equipment into the building. They will be needing to hire. So we're anticipating anywhere from 100 to 200 jobs when they are fully operational. But I know they have a quick timeline for 2023, so they're gonna start moving very quickly. So very exciting.
To expect this question, how many trucks are we gonna see in 32 blocking our traffic?
Probably the 10th person that have asked me that. I don't have an answer for that yet. When we've met with the founders, we did discuss traffic as a concern. I think people, once they get their operations fully functional, that may be time when we need to discuss with the city or with WashDOT to say, they're going to have 2 shifts running at X time. What can we anticipate for traffic and how will we help mitigate it? They do anticipate having 2 shifts, I believe. So that can help maybe determine when or where their load in time will be. So
these are always good news, bad news.
yeah.
I think the 2 shifts is big though. 100 employees, if you can split them up, then it's 50 at a time versus
I think my question was more aimed at how many, 18 wheelers are you going to see going down the road?
No more than 100 every few hours.
Is that right?
And it's actually, I believe it's soy and vegetable based proteins. So they're going to be buying peas for local farmers and that sort of thing. So it's pretty good deal.
Any other questions for Shawn? All right, thank you so much.
Thank you.
The owl is like looking up my nose. All right, so we have about 15 minutes. So we have time for some announcements, if anybody has any. I want to thank everyone that participated in Glass Quest. It's now over. Thank goodness. It's the 14th year. And I have to say that it was the best year that we ever had. It was amazing in terms of the Kind Quester program that we had so many food donations and pet donations. In my car, I have over 100 letters to go to elderly. I'm bringing some to Josephine's because we had so many. They were supposed to go to Meals on Wheels at the Camano Center. So something shifted. I can't quite put my finger on the fact that internally we call them glass holes. There weren't that many this year. They were there, but there weren't that many of them. And I don't know if it was Kind Quester or the cultures just changing, but people were actually really great. So thank you for putting up with the traffic and all the people looking at their feet in the parks. Our April meeting is April 20th. Kat from SCAC and Amy Bush from CAA are going to be presenting all about art. It is going to be at the Camano, the new building, the Island County building. So we've never had a meeting there before either, so that'll be exciting. And there is, I'm going to send an email out, but there is an EDC grant. I think it's just for Island County for the windstorm. Has anyone seen that?
It's not just for Island County, it's for Washington State.
Got it.
There's specific
criteria.
Yes, there are only specific storms or like the mudslides,
weather
like that. Yes, that you can apply for.
Right.
But it doesn't have to be in that time period. It can be post that time period or prior, showing like that damage was caused and you lost inventory from before or after that.
Got it. So the windstorm, I believe, is what
that's the main
one that affected us, this fall windstorm.
Yeah.
So there is a grant through EDC. I believe it's the end of the month that it is due, where you can apply for lost revenue, lost inventory. So pay attention to that because there is money coming. I thought, what storm? Oh yeah, that windstorm.
Yeah.
So I'll send an email out to everybody about that. Yeah. Any questions for me? Okay. I know Kat had an announcement. Does anyone else have an announcement? Okay, go ahead, Kat.
Okay,
first.
So I have a few of these. Brandon's going to take this to put it at the Commons. But SCAC is building the Art Center in Stanwood. And so we have a community survey out. It is available online. You can click this QR code here to access it. It's also on our website. There's a pop-up that comes up, kind of can't miss it. And we are asking questions about the Art Center that's coming here, about your relationship with art in general. It takes about 10-15 minutes to fill out. There is a portion at the end if you want to give your contact information. Otherwise, you can reply anonymously. Some of the questions are about classes you would like to see, workshops you would want to see, how far away you'd be willing to park, because we have a limited amount of space to put parking spaces on. We'll have outdoor space. Are you interested in sculpture gardens? Would you like to be just a park or a green space to sit in? Those kinds of questions. So if everybody could reply, that would be great. It runs for 2 more weeks. It ends on the 29th. So yeah, just about 2 more weeks. And I put it on my next door. I'm a member of some Facebook groups, so I added it there, but you're all in different neighborhoods than I am. So if you can add it and disseminate it, we've had over 100 replies so far. It's only been on about a week. My goal is 1,000, so hopefully we can get there.
Okay.
I have one. I was just gonna ask, is this available online so we can share on our business page? Absolutely. So if you go to scaclaw.org, that's our website. It's Stanwood Camano Arts Advocacy Commission. That works. So we just shortened that to make it a little easier. So it's scaclaw.org/survey. And then you can share 2 A's. Art advocacy. Yeah. Art advocacy.
All right, Wendy and
thanks.
So I'm with the Stanwood Camano Food Bank. I do donor development. And we have 2 big events coming up. One is super easy. We learned that the Lions Club is going to be doing a shredding event May 6th. So hold on to your documents, come and donate, because all of the proceeds will come to the food bank. The second thing is our grand reopening. Finally, it's coming June 15th. We're going to have a true grocery store model, an expanded space. Our food will all come home, because right now it's all over Snohomish County. And we would love to invite any local business that wants to come and see the new space. So if you are interested in attending that event, it'll be June 15th. And please just give me your business card. I'll put you on the invitation list.
Thank you. That's exciting.
When's the shredding event?
It's May 6th.
Thanks.
And it's going to be at Coastal Community Bank in Stanwood.
Thank you.
And I just want to promote pickleball.
Highest growing sport in America.
Yeah, we have, they've started the 2 new courts at Heritage Park. The projection is 8. But if you go to Mayo Stanwood Pickleball, there's all kinds of beginners classes, there's all kinds of workshops that are free, lessons you can pay for, but they have lessons and everybody's welcome. It's a great sport. I haven't played lately because I'm not in great weather, cold, rainy. But other than that, when it's nice, it's getting there. And it can be social, it can be competitive. I started out pretty competitive by age, and now I like the friendship. And just to get outside, and so it's $35 a year to join, and that includes the nets, your balls, and all their organizations. So I guess that's my job that long. I'm representing them, I should say something.
Don't you have a tournament coming up too?
And we did. And yeah, there's lots. There's it's on the webpage. There's lots. There's a summer soft tournament. Then they just had a St. Patrick's Day tournament. And that is, fun too. But like I said, I'm not that competitive anymore. I use my voice to promote people to come and join and feel part of the group.
Brent.
Yeah, I just want to let people know and help spread the word. So I'm working with the EDC on a like education program and stuff like that. There's grants attached to it as well, but we're in our final or getting ready for the final class. Just it's called Rain Cat Boot Camp, but it's about finances and stuff for businesses, different funding methods and stuff. But this one is going to be completely in Spanish. They wanted to do that as part of the grant to help reach the Hispanic community and stuff. There's not a lot of like only Spanish speakers on Camano, but if there's any business owners or people that are, that of, just send them my way because we've got signups. I think are due by the end of this month.
Has to be Island County.
Has to be Island County, yes. Which, yeah,
it is confusing. All right. Any other announcements?
If you want to get ready for pickleball, maybe your ankle turning. There's a therapy office, right?
Or more like pickleball. Kathryn, would you like to? Yeah. Is it like the highest injury sport?
I don't know. I'm luckily.
Thank you. It's a pay for us, Sarah. The city. Thank you. Thank you. And I do, if you have not seen this yet, this has been out for a while, but this is the Camano Island Tourism. We do have a box back there. If you need any, they are going to do a reprint. So once we kind of go through what we have, we won't have any for a little while. So just know that. But these are really great little booklets. But they are going to kind of do a refresh. They're talking about taking Barnum out because the parking is so small. So I don't know. I want to keep another Camano one, but there's more in the back. Well, it's wonderful to see everyone. Thank you. Brandon, I have a whole box in my car for you.